My dear friends, let's continue the 1972 World Chess Championship in between Boris Spassky and Robert James Fischer or Bobby Fischer. We came to game number 14, and if you want to revisit the previous games, they are in the archive, either YouTube or TikTok or wherever you can find them. Now, game number 14, not considered as spectacular as game 13, the Alekhine defense, in which Bobby Fischer won with the black piece. A spectacular game, by the way. Or game number 6, in which Bobby employs the Queen's Gambit with white and wins. Still instructive. So I would advise let's have a quick look together here. Quick look meaning like 10 minutes, maybe. Uh, anyway, it's totally instructive. I love it, and let's enjoy it together, guys. So, Bobby Fischer white. Queen's Gambit is going to play. Declined. Spassky didn't take on c4. So, Queen's Gambit declined. We're going to be moving quickly over the next couple of moves here. They are theoretical. We're going to stay half an hour just to explain the first 3 moves, and probably you guys don't want that, or maybe you do. So, yeah, drop me a comment if that's the case. So, bishop f4, nothing wrong if you would have liked to play bishop g5. That's not a problem. So, castles, e3, and c5. Now, challenging, going for the center. Things are going to be opening up very soon. And just not to forget, it's something interesting about this game because both Bobby Fischer and Boris Spassky both play a blunder, one after another. And it's quite important to pinpoint the moments and the psychology of the game. So I don't know who said I don't believe in psychology, I believe in good moves. Was it Bobby Fischer? If that was the case, well, it's very psychological. So for humans, chess is very psychological because you're not going to play a machine, right? Okay, so the last move that Black played, I think now it's time for us to try to apply a layer of interpretation, wordings, and such. So now the bishop on c8 is free to go. F, e6, you name it. Bishop e2, ready to castle short for white here. Bishop takes on c5. Castle short, not a problem. Bishop e6, reinforcing the isolated pawn. d5 is a black isolated pawn, but given the bishop e6 now, you're not going to touch that guy that easily. Rook c, always important. Move the rooks on open file or semi-open file. So always get the rooks as soon as you can if the file is open. And of course, opposing it straight away with your own rooks. Now, a3 being played here by Fischer. Not just to take b4 from possible knight or bishop, but also potentially for supporting some b4 at some point. So it's good to keep this in mind. A3, h6 being played here. The same prophylactic approach, h6, stopping any possible pin, or maybe if you want to further harass the bishop on e6 with the knight on g5, h6 just stops it. So h6 again, prophylactic, giving a little bit of space for the king in the future after pieces had been traded. It's good to keep this stuff in mind. So h6 now. Bishop g3 played, bishop b6, and knight to e5 being played here. Nothing wrong if you want to chase this guy a little bit more with a move like knight a4 because this bishop is quite active. So it wouldn't be a bad move to play knight a4 and chase the bishop on b6. But Fischer goes with knight to e5. Spassky doesn't take. He goes knight e7. Of course, he has the possibility to play, if he wants, later on, something like knight f5 and attacking the bishop on g3, which is actually quite one active minor piece of white. So that bishop on g3 is quite active. Ideally, you would like to taken off the bishops that are active. So that's a dangerous diagonal. And if bishop disappears, if the price is for you to trade with the knight, do it. So amongst others, yes. And you may wonder, why don't we play now? Well, you can't do it now because there is a knight here. So you can't just do it. Knight a4 being played. harassing now the knight on b6 and knight e4 because knight on c3 had been played already. So now you can attack with knight e4, go for the g3 active white bishop. Rook takes, and now important, what do we take back with? So let me just pause it now because we're getting into the important stuff, the substance of the game. Important, what do you take back with? If you consider taking back with the queen, it would be a mistake here for black. I'd like to just make it clear, because if black queen takes the rook, white will take on b6, forcing black to take with a, and all of a sudden black is having double pawns on the b file, so that's not that great for black, right? So you either take back with a bishop or you take back with the knight. Okay, so these little details, the pawn structure in the end game, they do matter so much, and including in the middle game, because double pawns are weakened, and we know in theory and in practice as well that if pawns are connected, they're happier. If they are doubled, you got to keep pieces to protect those guys. So Spassky takes with the bishop. Bishop e6 now drops a little bit back to recapture. And now knight to f3, jumping back, again revealing this beautiful diagonal of the bishop. Fischer plays now, borisspassky plays bishop d7, attacking the knight on a4. And the recommendation would be here to just simply using this current position for white, where the knight is peripheral, to take on b6. So you take a very active bishop with your marginal knights. Take in, of course, black's going to take back with a queen, but nonetheless, that would be absolutely recommended. That's not what Fischer played. He played bishop to e5. And it's not as strong as if knight were to capture on b6. Now bishop takes and attacks the queen with tempo. Notice, so bishop takes, queen now has to react. Queen takes back, and knight c6 attacking. Now this is the critical moment of the game. Knight c6 attacks the bishop. Now the recommendation would be here to simply either drop bishop to c3, maintaining the bishop on this beautiful diagonal, or to simply, if you don't like the prospect of knight taken on c3, you could very well play bishop to d4. And yes, of course, a couple of trades will be happening, but it is preferable to the blunder that actually Fischer played it right now. So this is the moment, the psychology of the game. Fischer plays the blunder, bishop f4. Why is this a blunder? Because with the correct reaction response, black here will damage terribly the king side of white, starting with g5, which, shockingly, Spassky didn't play it. He didn't see it. He blundered himself as soon as Fischer played this blunder, bishop f4. Spassky blundered himself with queen f6, which in principle, yeah, it's understandable, goes after b2 and stuff. But the punishment for white blunder is g5. And if you say now, well, what kind of blunder is that? I mean, I can save my bishop, right? Well, yeah, but it's still not going to look good for the king. So you could go e5, which would be a massive, immediate loss after g4, where the knight on f3, the defender of the e5 bishop, has to move. You move the knight, you drop the bishop. You move the bishop, you drop the knight. So that would have been a complete disaster very quickly, sanctionable by black. And if you say, wait a minute, but after g5, I can play g3, right? Yes, white can play bishop g3, but there is a continuation here. There is a follow-up. So now the h6 moving on to h5 with the threat of h4. And then you do have an issue, right, with white. The bishop on g3, where do you go? All the squares are taken, right? So that guy is going. And you say, well, yeah, but h3, right? Yeah, well, sure, h3. But also there is a very powerful tactic that black can play. Knight takes g3. And that forces white to take back straight away with fg. They have to, right? And when they take, already you guys can see the weaknesses profiling everywhere now. The bishop attacks e3. Right? So that's where the king is. You can't protect that pawn. And if you really insist with, I don't know, let's, oh, by the way, it's black's turn now, right? So you move the king. I don't think you're crazy to play rook f2, right? I mean, you could, but hey, what's the point of it? You could do king h2, you could do king h1, but then we've got more attacking coming. Queen to d6, queen to e7. I mean, rook to e8. There is collapsing. The white fortress protected the king is just collapsing. And this bishop is killing it on the dark square. Queen on d6 kills the other diagonal dark squares here. So white is in serious trouble and loses here. Surprisingly, that Spassky didn't go for this punishment, immediate g5. So very psychological, as you can see, chess here. So bishop f4, blunder, absolutely blunder, and black should have punished with g5, but he didn't. Again, psychology at work, humans playing. There you go. Human mind is so fallible, annoyingly fallible, right? Queen f6. Again, understandable, but it's not the punishment for bishop f4. And bishop b5, well, queen takes, bishop takes, knight now plays c3, attacking the queen. That's a little bit of a Zwischenzug, improving the piece's position. You could take the bishop, but knight c3 actually attacks the queen. So, and by the way, queen then has to move to safety, and you can take this guy later on. Also, you attacking the b5. So, knight to c3, attacking the white queen. White queen goes to b4. Obviously, you're going to take back with the queen. Takes, and now you're going to recapture back on c6. So this is the position now. A bit of an advantage for white here. Bishop to e5, attacking the knight on c3. Has to go to safety, obviously. Rook to c, pounding of this c6 backward weak pawn. Another idea, it's good to keep in mind the concept of backward weak pawn. So the c6 is such a backward weak pawn. You want to go after that guy and attack it, right? So rook to c8 now, defending it. You can't take it. And now Fischer plays knight to d4 and makes a lot of sense. Why? Because if you're looking at a position, you either start doing trades now with black, which, by the way, there's nothing wrong with that. There's a recommendation here. Knight takes, bishop takes, pawn takes here, right? So, yeah, it is what it is. And that's the correct way to play. But because you're threatening actually knight takes knight, and you can't take back because of rook winning the black rook on c8. So game 14, quite instructive. So just stick around for a while here, guys. What do you think Spassky plays here? Another dubious move. So the stuff you're supposed to play is knight takes d4. You just start trading now, enjoying your 6 black pawns versus 5 white pawns, and go for grinding. You give this position to, say, Magnus Carlsen, he's going to be grinding for victory, right? Because you got 1 extra pawn. Maybe something good's going to happen. But here, Spassky goes with a very dubious approach here, f6, because you see, this guy is still takeable, but in the meantime, white is winning a pawn. Let me show you the idea, because, I mean, I talked about this one, but let me just go into the practicality of it. And the continuation here favoring black would be rook b8 going for this guy. Just wanted to show you not to forget about this idea. And if you say now, yeah, but I could take this guy's pawn on c6, right? So what's the big deal? The big deal is we're going to be pushing the a5. And now there is a big problem with white pawn. You can't take on a5 because by doing so, you're just simply going to get checkmated in 2. So it's a disaster. And if you push the b5 here, well, black's going to take anyway, still threatening checkmate and defending those 2 pawns. So again, black is kind of winning here. Big chances for black to win. So Spassky should have approached in this way in this game 14, but instead he went with a dubious f6, which doesn't achieve anything. It actually loses a pawn on f, completely unnecessarily, and isolating that beautiful pawn island, 3 pawns connected, you know, so it's just not worth it. So now he tries to repair a little bit the damage with bishop takes and bishop take back. Obviously, you're not going to take with a pawn, because if you take with a pawn, black's going to take here. And again, black is definitely winning. So he took with a bishop. knight takes, and pawn takes. So there is a big difference in between this current position that actually did happen concretely in the game and the previous position in which black had the extra pawn with the beautiful then rook b8 and a5 threat for the checkmate. So now the things had changed. Yeah, rook b8, obviously. But now Fischer goes with king f, so no more back rank, no more a5 threats and stuff. So now the game is going to be a draw. It's getting really, really drawish at this stage. Takes, so I'm gonna just moving a little bit faster. Yeah, there is a pass pawn here, but you're not gonna make it. You're not gonna make it because the white rook is going to be checking the heck out of the black king. So positioning itself behind the pass pawn of black. Sure, ideally, if this rook was behind its own pass pawn, but it's not. It's in front, so it's not going to be that easy. Plus, the white king goes now into attacking the black rook, so you ain't going to do nothing. Check, of course, but move away of check, move away from check, and, you know, if you're going for this kind of stuff, sorry, if you go for this kind of idea, still it's not gonna do nothing here because you're gonna take, and if there is a check, you're just gonna protect your guys. Again, there's nothing gonna happen. This is a draw. So they continued with a couple of more moves, going for g5 weakness. Okay, king attacks and defends g5 and attacks the rook, and you know a couple of more shufflings, threefold repetition or something. They agreed on a draw. So again, the psychology of the game, both Fischer and Spassky blundered one after another. What move was that, fellas? Rook f4. This is very well known. Move number 20. Yeah, move number 20. Bishop f4, blunder, played by Fischer. And now Spassky, instead of winning the game with g5, he made the blunder himself immediately with queen to f6. So, again, I think it's instructive. Good to see all this stuff, and I hope you guys enjoyed it. Share the video if it was useful, entertaining to any extent, and hopefully guys see you later on with a live stream in which we could do together puzzles, blitzes, rapids, or simply a game analysis of our most recent games. Soren Chess Coach here, signing off for now. Be good and be wise.